I got him. Got him. Yes.
Oh, there's nice fish.
Yeah. That's giant. Oh, he's still on it. Oh, look at him. He wants it.
Oh my God, they're so heavy. Whoa.
Coming in hot. I got him. Go. Fish. Go.
The window is open.
Came out of nowhere. Come on, girl. Got him. There we go. Look at that. Oh, tiger. El Tigre. Yeah. Awesome, Muskie. This is what you dream about catching.
And we are on and getting ready for Muskie Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, just want to welcome everybody. This is a big part of the spring fishing and boat show and something we've always really took. You know what? We love these guys. And I'm just going to bring Peter on right now because Peter actually is the president of Muskies Canada. Peter, you there? There you go. How are you, buddy?
Past President Andy, but still active and going. Today's
You know what?
day, and it's a great day for lovers. And Muskie Sunday is a really special morning for muskie lovers. So thank you for doing what you do. It's a special fish, and this is every year. This is just a great part of the show. Thank you so much.
I don't think anybody ever questions the love you guys got for this fish, and it's incredible. Like, you know, and it's not just here that you guys are very proactive. You guys are very proactive in the conservation and the growth of the sport, which is incredible. That you know, like from what you guys did on Simcoe and numerous other studies. I actually came to the Muskie Odyssey, I think 2 years ago, and you had the guys from St. Catharines there to actually show how some of the other stuff, and you guys are actually funding a lot of stuff, which is amazing that you're funding government projects, which you would never think, right? So not from you guys, I'm saying that we're opposite funding government programs opposed to the other way around, right? So
well, it takes all of us to really have a great fishery, and Muskies Canada really wants to be able to do its part. We work with partners, we work with the ministries, but Canada has some of the best muskie water in the world, but it's not by accident that that's the case. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So, you know, we, all our chapters, our 13 chapters across Canada work with everyone that we can to help not just enjoy the fishery, but to preserve and sustain it for future generations. That's really important. You know, all wild fish for muskies in Canada. It's not stocked.
Yeah, and you know, even simple things that you don't realize where Muskies Canada, you pull up to a ramp and you see that sign there that tells you the difference and the difference between, like, you know, I'm going to tell you, how many people do you think that saves, like, from, you know, knowing the difference in a pike and a muskie and the different types of muskies, and that education factor is huge. And a lot of that, what people have to understand, is driven by memberships. And, you know, you can never get enough members in an organization that is such a great organization that could use more members and help drive some of these things. So, like, I really do stand behind you guys. I just I have this, but I don't know, it was on my wall here. I didn't realize it because we're lifetime members with the Federation of Anglers and Hunters, but Vita had actually put this in. I don't know if you can see that on there or not, but you know, so that was given to us quite a few years back, and you know, so we're lifetime. I'm a lifetime member at Muskie at the Muskies Canada, and that was given to me by Scott Murray back in the day. You know, so that's a long time that we've been supporting Muskies Canada, and it's. My number's 3,005. I don't know if that still exists, that number.
We're not quite there yet in membership, but we're working on it. So
I might be dating myself, but you know what? It's something you guys should be thinking. And you know, and they haven't stopped. Like, just like us, it's important that we keep engaged with the people of just fishing community, angling community. And you know, with us, we're a lot more broader in the sense of, you know, kayaking and bass and walleye. But these guys are really focused in muskie, and they're so focused. They actually have a Muskie Odyssey that they run every year now, or every other year. It used to be every other year.
Every other year. Now we're running it every year, and then COVID hit. So the challenge that we have, the same as the spring fishing boat show, is going virtual. But you know, that really starts to open up some new opportunities. And one of the things about an organization like ours is that we're busy with the angling and we're busy helping the fishery, but we don't often talk about ourselves. Who is Muskies Canada? What do you guys do? So the virtual Odyssey that we're going to run this year is going to be April 17th and 18th. It's going to be free. It's going to be on our Facebook page, Muskies Canada Official.
Yeah.
We're going to have 2 days of programming that will go right across from the East Coast to Lake of the Woods. And we're going to talk about our chapters, who they are and what they do. And we're going to go behind the scenes to talk about these great fisheries and the work that goes on to help to do the research we need to know, to find out information that helps us to manage and then work on management plans with all of the various partners that are involved, work on the conservation of the species, provide education. You'll see a lot. You'll get the whole spectrum of Muskies Canada chapters.
So, and that's a real good thing. And a lot of people don't realize that you guys have become very influential on northern states as well too. Like I know some of the relationships that you guys have gathered that way. So that's pretty cool that you guys, that people are looking into Canada and listening. And is there as much muskie fishing? Like I know like the northern, like the bigger lakes and stuff like that, but is there as much muskie fishing in the US as there is in Canada or more?
Oh, us muskie people, whichever side of the border you're on, we travel to go to our favorite muskie destinations. We have a bucket list of places that we haven't been yet that we want to go. Like we're just like that. We're nomads to a certain extent, and it's really good. So, our thought is the event is called Muskies Canada at Work, a virtual. And so
that's good.
Muskies Canada at Work just sets that up, and we'll take you to all of those great muskie destinations and show you the lakes, show you the river systems, and show you what's going on behind the scenes that we're involved in.
So I would think that probably the most challenging part of the virtual for you guys is going to be the fundraising component of it. And the thing is people have to realize that there's going to be opportunities to buy and do stuff on the Odyssey in the next few weeks. But more so through the chapters and how do we maintain, like I know like you guys do really well through our show, and the thing is you guys do extremely well on your show, and that's a big chunk of change that is not going to necessarily come your way this year. So the thing is I don't know, it's going to be a lot of work to offset that.
Well, what we're going to do, I know it was tough this past year because we were all set to go with the Odyssey, and about 4 weeks out we had to cancel it because of COVID. This year what we're doing is we have a big fundraiser which will be a silent auction, and the whole industry has stepped forward to help to provide us really great stuff to be able to auction as a fundraiser, so that we've got money to play and be part of projects, whether it's buying radio tags for a research project or working with universities that are involved to be able to help students and provide grants for them to be able to do their work. So there's going to be a terrific fundraiser. If you're interested in rare baits or special, like the best of the most recent muskie equipment that's on the market, places to go, lodges, we've got 4 opportunities for a day on the water with somebody. I'm one of them. That's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to auction that stuff off, and it's going to be just a wonderful opportunity. And that helps us to have a little bit of money to be able to participate and support all this good work that's going on across the country through our chapters.
And I encourage guys to, open up and understand that what it's all about. Like, even if you see a lure or a product that, you're saying, oh, I can buy it for cheaper. It's not about that, guys. Like, if you haven't figured it out, it's what these guys do. It's not about that. It's not about, they're not getting compensated any other way other than personal satisfaction and a love and a passion for a species of fish that they've done so much work for. So, you know what, like I said, just because you start seeing those things getting to maybe it's value and like, okay, well, that's all it's worth, I can go buy it. Don't look at it that way. Look at it, what you're buying is an opportunity to save or to help protect the fish and grow it bigger and better. So, and you guys are doing a great job right now. So I'm not going to sit there and nobody can take that away from you.
Muskies Canada is all volunteer. 100% of the people that are working on the Odyssey are volunteers. Everything that comes in and all the net proceeds from this is going to go back into the fishery, because that gives us our war chest to be able to support that. So that's the attractive thing. No matter how people participate, if they tune in and learn more, if they buy a lure or a brand new rod on the silent auction, or if they've got something that they want to donate for the silent auction, it all goes to support the fishery. And as they say, it takes all of us. So we really appreciate the support to be able to do that. And that's part of, like if you're not a tireless volunteer, you become a member. There's a lot of ways that you can support the fishery that we'll be talking about. And I think it's really important to build awareness and do outreach to the whole muskie community to share that set of values. Catch and release is what got us all started. And there's no better feeling than watching that big fish swim away for another day. But handling is important, and how we fish. And it's going to be fun this morning to have Jim and Gord and Jeremy and Josh. This is going to be really fun. So thank you so much, Andy, for making this an important part of the show.
It'll always be, buddy. And I just want to thank you for coming out. And folks, you do want to give us those dates one more time before I let you go?
April 17th, and that'll be on Muskie's Canada official site on Facebook. So
all right, bye.
You'll see lots of promotion. We're launching it today.
And we'll be reminding you on the Spring Fishing Boat Show site. So good luck to you guys. I know it'll be a great event, and I'll be tuning in myself. So thank you.
Thanks for your support for Muskies. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you. All right. So Muskie's Canada, and I just wanted one thing he said about the amount of work that goes into the people that are in there, and it's. When it comes to all these events, nobody's getting paid for any of that stuff. Muskie's obviously, the amount of work that goes into it's endless, right? So, I'm sure they could really use your support. I do want to bring these guys up, so I'm sure that's why you're all tuning in. And they're fantastic guys. They've been with the Spring Fishing and Boat Show now for, I don't know, a lot of them have been coming back and forth over the years. Jim's become, he's one of ours, right? Like we totally look out for him. Gord is obviously, we want to thank Outdoor Canada magazine too, because they've been a big part of this behind the scenes. There's been a lot of people behind the scenes and manufacturers that have been supporting us and helping us with these anglers. These great anglers have come up over the years. So I'm just going to clip out to a commercial real quick, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to have the boys on, and I'm going to leave it up to them for them to hopefully teach you something.
What makes me work so hard? What am I really after? When you pursue a fish like a muskie, let's be clear, there's no fish like a muskie. Every magic hour on the water marks another step closer. The muscle memory of a million casts fires again and again, as natural as every breath that I take. Every twitch is done with a purpose. The elements are my best friend and my worst enemy. I put my body and equipment to the test again and again, and we always want one more test.
Look at that.
A lifetime on the water has taught me to think, feel, and notice things that most people wouldn't understand.
Cover ground, move fast with the trolling motor, then all of a sudden when you see a catch a fish, then you dial in the cast.
I can't stop. Just one more cast, strike, fight.
That thing just floated off and all of a sudden.
But I've already caught the fish. The elusive fish, impossible fish, giant fish. And I let every one of them go. So what am I really after? I live for the pursuit.
Boys, welcome to the Spring Fishing and Boat Show.
How are you? I am excellent. Everything's great.
Gord, how you doing, buddy? We got a little bit of feedback, I think, happening there. So, no, it's not. It's just everything's fine. Okay, I just want to make sure. Jim, I just watched that commercial a couple of times now, and I noticed I see you jogging. And I'm thinking like that guy, he's got to be in shape for all the big fish he catches. So, and but a couple of questions I got before we get right into this. Like, who was the original guy that came out with a figure eight? Like either one of you guys, has that ever been documented? Like the figure eight, who was the guy that actually said, "Hey, the figure eight"? I don't know. Did you guys ever think about that?
Yeah, I think about it. I haven't found like one person. I think there were actually books that were written in the 40s, and I've seen information from like as early as that where people talk about that in the figure eight. So in the 40s and 50s. So, but it wasn't like attributed to one individual. So why or how someone started it, I don't know. Maybe Gord knows, but I know that like Steve Heiding, who, worked with me and a friend of mine at Muskie Hunter, we did some research looking into it, and we couldn't pin it to one individual, but we were pretty impressed with how far back in time the whole concept went. And again, to think that the muskie is like the only fish that really has that kind of added technique in it. And I actually caught, Andy, I have caught lots of bass and walleye on figure eights because I can't help it when I'm fishing a crankbait. I'm naturally making that first turn of the figure eight just because it's in my muscle memory.
Natural. Gord?
One time Len Hartman, and we won't go into Len's background, but I had the chance to fish with Len Hartman. He came up here on Lake of the Woods in it was probably the 1980s, 85. And Len was telling me that on the St. Lawrence River, back when he caught those bigger fish, we won't say world records, so many people went out and followed him that the way he got rid of the pressure is he would go over deep or over weed beds, like the scuzziest, worst weed beds you could ever find. And Len would then get a huge white towel, like about a 5-6 foot white towel, and he would hook it on his lure in the weed beds, and he would figure eight. And then all of a sudden he'd start screaming, and everybody would look at him, and then he'd whip the big white towel into the boat. And he said that would pull everyone into the weeds, and then he'd leave and go to the good spots. So I know Len was doing it in the 50s and 60s, but Jim's probably right. It even goes back further than that.
Wow, that's incredible. And then the other one too that comes to mind is, and sorry guys, but I'm not taking away from you, but the fish of 1,000 casts. Like, who was the guy that's like it? And everybody calls it that. It's not like it's like these are so common that you want to think, where did it stem? Does anybody know who was the first guy to actually say that? Or
10,000 casts, Andy.
Sorry, I was wrong. It is crazy the way when you think about it. So, hey guys, I just want to thank you once again for coming out. This is going to be the first Valentine's you're going to be at home with your wives, and I hope it's going to be an enjoyable one. And next year we'll have you back here, so you better enjoy it with your wives this year. Because next year maybe we'll bring your wives with you guys, right? So, but you know what? There's something about virtual's great, and we get a lot of messaging out. It actually reaches a lot more people right from their homes, and it's going to be interesting to see how many people come on this over the years and over the next few months. Everybody keep in mind that you can come back and watch this over and over again. So if you're missing out on a tip, you can always come back and watch and what these guys are saying if they're getting specific on things. But again, these guys, I guess you guys will both be at the Muskie Odyssey at one point or another. They have all kinds of things happening even after hours. So we do want to support Muskie Odyssey as well. But right now, I just want to let these guys get on with the presentation because I don't want to take up any of their time. So guys, once again, I just want to say thank you very much. Really appreciate you guys doing this for us this year. We'll be back next year, I promise you. And we'll take it from there. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Gord Pizer and Jim Sir. There you go. Take it away, guys.
All right.
Andy, I just before Andy's gone, I just thanks for doing this for us so we can get set up, and from there. And I don't know where we're gonna go with this, Gord, for sure, but I have one big question for you because knowing that in the last year, I could not get into Canada. All I could think about it quite often, I thought about you being on a body of water like Lake of the Woods with none of us U.S. crazies able to fish that water. What was it like being on Lake of the Woods? And I have to imagine the boat traffic was down significantly there, given so many U.S. anglers spend time, let's say, on Lake of the Woods. But you being in there, what was it like being on that water? And did you see any changes or anything from that?
It's a really good question, Jim. Believe it or not, it was our best year. I'll tell you that. I got some photos I'm going to show in my presentation. So it was our best year ever. I'll take that back. It was our best year probably in the last 15 to 20. And I'll show you some pictures shortly. But, whoops, I'm getting feedback there. Hold on. I don't know if, is that any better? There, Jimmy, believe it or not, the pressure was incredible. What happened was, because of the lockdown in Canada, and because so much folks had so much time on their hands. Here, I'll give you one good example, and this you won't like to hear. In Kenora here, by the launch ramp, there's a large Shell gas station, and that's where most of the guys gas up their boats. On Labor Day Friday, so this is the Friday leading into Labor Day, they ran out of gas at the Shell gas station. They set an all-time record for sales, 3 times their highest daily sales for that day. They had to have an emergency truck bring gas in, and they said it was absolutely incredible. So if folks are thinking they're going to come up and it hasn't been hit for a year, trust me, that is not the case. People had so much time on there. You didn't need a map on Lake of the Woods this year. All you needed to do was go for a boat ride, and you would say, there's a shoal, there's a shoal, there's a good point, and there was a boat on every one of them. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I want to say I just feel better now. Maybe it's just through jealousy. You know what I mean? I just got to say that, I mean, because all I could think about was, wow, there's all these spots and no one's fishing them. Those fish are sitting there. Guys like Gord are just cruising in. Haven't been fished in a month. Oh, I'm going to go fish this section, that section. Like, I was really hating on you a lot, Gord, thinking about in the summer. So I feel much, much better, knowing that. But what's interesting is that in the States, we had the same thing happen with all of our waters. And it's not just muskie. It was just the number of boats on the water. I went out and was fishing in Green Bay in Wisconsin in late July, and I was muskie fishing, and there were some guys out walleye fishing, and I launched, right at like 5 in the morning, a half hour before light, because you got to get out there. There's an early morning bite that goes on some of the Great Lakes stuff, and normally I'm not doing that, but in the Great Lakes, you got to do it. And so I went out there and I started fishing, and this little boat launch, holds about trailers for about 20 vehicles, whatever. And so went out there, fished, and it got really hot and flat. And about 11:30 or 12, we went in to kind of get out of the sun, take a break for a couple hours to go back for the evening bite. And I went back to get my truck, and all of a sudden we pulled up there. There are literally 100 rigs. They're parked down the thing. And when I came back in the afternoon, there were like 50 or 60 walleye boats fishing one big giant shoal, and everybody was catching walleyes. And it was like a Tuesday. So it was the middle of the week, and it was the same thing. Everybody got out, and I think all the people that I know that had not necessarily resorts, but and a lot of the Midwest that had resorts, or they had marinas and tackle shops. It was just everybody was fishing. I mean, the sales of licenses in Minnesota, for example, actually doubled in this year, which is pretty amazing. So yeah.
I think we were up, I heard something like 19 to 22% on license sales. And Jimmy, the launch ramp in Kenora beside the recreation center, it's probably the biggest one in town here. And on Labor Day weekend, that same weekend I was telling you about earlier, they filled up the overflow parking lot. And then they had to go to an overflow for the overflow, and they filled it up with boats, motors, and trailers. So that's how crazy it was.
Well, I tell you what, that those I was just really, really hoping those fish wouldn't be touched. So I have to reevaluate my plans, but that's all right. So
I won't. I was going to say it might not have been as intelligent pressure as most years, but it was certainly more pressure. I think a lot of folks, they say, "Well, I've never ever caught a muskie. This is the year I'm going to go do it," and that's great. So they went out testing waters and they went out looking for things. I had a lot of people emailing. And I will say this, I had a fair number of folks say, I haven't yet caught a fish. I've been doing all of this. So I wouldn't say maybe that it was intelligent. And I don't mean that in any disparaging way, which is great for the industry. I think a lot of new muskie anglers came into the fold. And hopefully folks like Muskies Canada and Muskies Inc. in the US, hopefully they're going to see their membership grow significantly as a result.
Yeah, no, that would be great. I think that would be, that's kind of the whole part of it. I mean, I think that there's no question. I think Muskies Canada needs to get bigger, and the more people that are there and interested in it and kind of protect the resource. In the States, Muskies Inc. was huge throughout the years in working with the individual states, natural resource, agencies. Every club, does, we go help, we clean up a boat launch, we raise money for them if they need a fike net or they need what do they need? You have that relationship. And in the States, it's always like, oh, well, even though there's way more bass anglers than muskie anglers, if, it's the muskie clubs, the ones that are helping us out. So when all of a sudden there's, and there's not a lot of stocking all the time that goes up through Canada. But when those opportunities come up for things like that, or there's interest in a research project, whatever, all of a sudden the States, it'd be like, oh, well, we got some extra money. Let's stock some muskies in this lake because these guys are helping us. And some of the other bass clubs or walleye clubs aren't as much. And so that's just kind of how it works, with us. And, it's definitely different. So.
Yeah. No, it'll be. I'll tell you. And here's a totally off topic, but kind of I was going to go get some muskie baits to figuring we'd talk about some things today as we go through. And I got up this morning and I walked out the back door, Jimmy, and I put my nose out the door and it was minus 36. I turned around and I came in. I don't have any muskie baits. I had to close. Was going to climb up into the garage, but not at minus 36.
Right. I hear you. So yeah, I don't know where we're going to go. I saw that you have a presentation, and I didn't, set up a presentation. I figured, I know that there's, some comments, for those of you who are joining on thing, I see there are some comments popping up and I'll read in the comment field and go through that. But I don't know if you'd like to if you want to jump in to your presentation, or if there's a couple things you want to cover first before we go on, any thoughts on how you'd like to kind of proceed?
I'm easy, Jim. You want to take a few questions first, and then maybe I'll jump on my presentations. I'll speed it up. I can probably do it in 50. I got some stuff that'll blow your mind. It is like truly the most cutting edge, and it's not mine. It's stuff that has been shared with me, and it is absolutely brilliant. And I think it'll blow everyone's mind off. And folks will actually leave with more questions than they started with. But it's some cutting edge research that is mind blowing.
I like that. That's very interesting. So I definitely want to hear that for sure. I guess, Gord, one thing I'll ask you before we get going, I said I'm looking through before your presentation. I'm looking to see. So if anybody joining us, if you got a question, you can just type it in the Facebook Live thing, and we can certainly address those as we go in. But one of the things is, so given the fact that was there one technique this year that was more effective than anything else that you saw? Like, from your, I know that we had a lot of unstable weather throughout our season. So, it's hard to point to one for me, but, I'll ask you, did you see what, was it different or something different you were doing that maybe made, because you said you had your best season ever. So there better be something going on.
It's really interesting question, Jim, and this will blow your mind. It was maybe the best topwater year I've seen in living memory, and that'll hurt you, I know, because there's nothing more exciting than a topwater muskie bite.
Yeah,
but
can I just turn this thing off? Just get it off.
We had so much calm weather and so much hot weather, and the topwater bite was just superb. But I got to tell you one other thing, and you and I haven't rehearsed this. Folks need to go online and download the Muskie Hunter television app, the Salooner Table app, Jim.
Yeah.
Opening day, the opening day. I'm out for an hour with my grandson, so we're 60 minutes into opening day, and it was a quarter to 12 in the so quarter to 12, almost noon hour, and I said to Liam, we were probably 18 miles down lake, 20 miles down lake, and I said, ooh, and we had the Muskie Hunter TV table, and I looked at it and I said to Liam, I said, geez, the prime is at 12:30. And 1 year earlier, on exactly the same day, on opening day, I raised a giant. One of the biggest fish we saw the entire year, on the year before. So I said, what do you want to do? And he said, let's go to that same spot and let's get there at 12:30, which is the peak. And that's when, I think it was moonrise, Jim, but I know it was the peak of the day. And It was a high peak. It was like 94, 95% peak. We motored for 45 minutes, came around the bay. We did not make 5 casts 2 boat lengths away from where I raised it last year. He caught his biggest fish of his life, about 51, 52 inches, massive size.
Oh my gosh.
8 handlebars, double 8 right at the side of the boat, came up like a crocodile. And I'll tell you what, we used your app every time we went fishing this year. And you tell me, maybe it's coincidence, but it was our best year in living memory.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I don't want to say I attribute the app to all of that, but by any means, you guys, you're pretty skilled, and but I can tell you that. So the guys who developed this app, it is fascinating. So they, the app's free. So there's no scam getting the app. It's nothing to it. It's just, so what we did is it brings in your real-time weather station. So like when you're at Kenora, it's pulling in the Kenora weather, and so what it does is we put together, it's like 22 plus factors. So besides the moon rising and setting or overhead, underfoot, it also pulls in, looks at the barometer. It looks at, what's the weather trend for the last several days, what's happening that day. And basically what they did is they created this mathematical algorithm. All right. So there's weighting factors that go to all these 22 things, from moon, sun, and then I kind of threw in, some of my historic, empirical knowledge of, hey, in the summertime, it's better with the southwest wind and overcast. That should be weighted heavier than, it's northeast wind, sunny with no humidity, right? And in the fall, it changes. Those factors change based on that. So it pulls in all those 22 factors real time, and then it runs through a mathematical equation, an algorithm, and then predicts when the peaks will be throughout the day. So, and again, it's not always right, like anything else. But so as for people who musky fish a lot, you're aware, you're watching all these things on the water. But as a weekend warrior, you come up, this kind of puts that thought process together. And I just tell people, I go, if you watch that app, you watch that, when the peaks are going to be, just plan on being on a good spot during that peak. Or if you see a muskie, go back to it. And you'll be surprised. It will just really open up opportunities for you. That's really how it is.
100%, Jim. I got to tell you 2 other things because you touched on. Number one, the app works for lake trout in the wintertime.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Last year, we had Liam and I, we were out, we had one day, and we put 13 Lakers on the ice, and they average probably between 10 and 14 pounds. So we put 13 on the ice that one day. But here's the key. We had probably another 7, 8 chasers. We call them, I even lost my, anyway, kind of hit and runs, drive-by shootings, or what we call it. But we could have had 20. There were a couple of times he would get one on, or I would get one on. He'd say, well, I got one chasing. Jim, it was the lowest day. So on the app, it actually said, this is going to be a very bad day. It was really, really low. So what we did, instead of going to lakes and traveling to places we didn't know, we went to our best spot on our all-time favorite lake and had our best day. And so people would say, you know, the app wasn't right. You know what? It was the app that drove us to do that. And it resulted in the best day on the ice that we had that year, last winter. The other thing I will tell you is exactly what you also said. You know, everybody, our tendency is to run to, if we raise a big fish, to go there at last light. And the previous year, the biggest fish I caught in 2020, biggest muskie I caught in 2020, I raised it about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And I raised it and we pulled off and we left. Normally, we would have gone back there at night, right at last light on our way home. And we would have this time as well. But there was a peak at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30, I think it was. We went back at 4:30. I caught it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So again, you know, last light is good, but the peaks are better. And you know, the bass guys, I'm convinced the bass guys, they always run to their number one spot in practice. So if they're fishing a tournament, they always go to whatever was best in practice. That's their first spot on the first day of the tournament. I think it would be far better to go there on the peak. And so I think it's a mistake sometimes to go to your best spot first thing in the day. Go to your best spot where you know there's a fish on the peak. And I'm going to actually talk a little bit about that in the presentation, but you can weave it in. And I know, Jim, you sell, the app is free, and that's what
free. Muskie Hunter TV app is free, right? It's just, you know, you go to the Apple, you know, whether you get an Apple phone, it's available in all the formats, Android or Apple. You go to you go to either one, to Google, or you go to thing, or you go to, you know, again, it's the Muskie Hunter TV app. It's free. You can download it to do whatever else. And you know, Gord, one thing I do too, on those days where it says it's going to be bad, right? You know, the fishing, it's going to be tough, you know, and you know, and a lot of times you'll wake up, it's summer and it's post-frontal and it's bluebird and there's no humidity. I'll still go fishing, right? And then, but I will also then, if I know I'm a few hours into it and I'm like, okay, it looks like these fish may have left the lake today, then I kind of change my whole attitude, and I will go and I'll say, okay, this is not going to be a 5-fish day. You know, it might be one of those days where I need to get a bite. And so you may go to fish your best spots, or you slow down. It helps dictate to kind of change your presentations, you know, and, you know, with that. So,
and Jimmy, again, you took the words out of my mouth, because I said it was such a great topwater year, but that's exactly how we use the app. You know, you get out there and you say, you know, it still looks like it should be topwater, but then you check the app and it's down around 24, 25%. You're out fishing at 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's a kind of a minor peak at later in the after. I'll tell you what, it didn't take long to stop throwing topwaters.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great bait, you know. I mean, there's no question about it. So I know people, like I said, I see they've been asking about the app, and yep, it is the Muskie Hunter TV app, like we talked about. Someone wanted to talk a little bit about Georgian Bay, and then I can let you get on your, you know, and I don't know, Gord, have you spent any time on Georgian Bay? Have you traveled that way, other than from a research standpoint?
I have been on a little bit about. And there's Phil. I have been on Georgian Bay in my earlier days when I was with M&R. But and I followed the recent research, Jim, but I have not fished it for muskies a great deal. We were always up around the Moon River for walleyes and the south end for steelhead. But how about you? Have you been on Georgian?
I have, but I haven't fished it a lot. You know, I mean, it's, you know, I think that, you know, and I have a lot of friends that fish it and spend time there. And I fished a lot of, obviously I fished a lot of Great Lakes muskies in different parts of the country. And I've, and throughout, you know, in Ontario and in Quebec, I've fished all that whole Great Lakes system in some of those areas. And so you have some of the things that are unique. You know, I think that, you know, one of the things about Georgian Bay is that it's, you have to be optimistic or opportunistic, and in talking to Arunas and some of the other biologists out there who spend time on the bay, that, a lot of those fish are relating to a lot of the river systems. They're spawning in those river systems. And so they're kind of areas you want to focus on. And there are, all these rivers that flow in, Magnetawan, Key, they're all, up and down that whole bay that flow in. And so, but I don't believe those fish spend, the muskie season opening in that third week of June or whatever it is, or middle of June, depending on thing, that a lot of times those fish, depending on the year, they may not still be in there by then. They may end up pulling out or be near the mouth. And so you want to try to, I would say that you want to fish those in those areas near the opener, or the flip side is as late in the season as you can get. It seems like those fish, a lot of telemetry studies show them coming back towards their spawning ground later in the season. So if you can get in there in November, in the sketchy weather, or get to those, they will tend to pull more fish into the mouths of those rivers and into those rivers themselves. And so it's not that you don't want to go out in the bay and fish that stuff in the summer, but I feel like opportunistically, fishing near the opener, in those rivers and in the mouths, and then getting there later and later in the season is going to really increase your odds to kind of get more fish to target, so.
And Jim, the other thing on Georgian Bay, the other thing about, I was talking to the fellows, and I believe was McMaster University doing the tracking work on Georgian Bay. And one thing shocked them in the summertime. It absolutely shocked them. So they're tracking fish with the telemetry.
Right.
And so they know where they're located. And that was the number of muskies under docks. And they said we were shocked at the number of people sitting on their docks that did not know there was a 4 to 5 foot fish right underneath their feet. And it's muskies love that overhead cover. And I'm not saying as soon as you get to Georgian Bay, start flipping and pitching dock. Quite interesting that it shocked the guys doing the telemetry work how many of those fish were under that overhead cover.
Well, that's pretty fascinating, particularly if it's summertime, because, you'd think, oh my gosh, are these fish going to come out? And, it's kind of like some of those St. Lawrence fish going out into Lake Ontario and spending, a lot of the summers, going out in there, and, it can be a needle in a haystack in some of those situations. But, in Georgian Bay, there are a lot of islands and island homes that have docks that are scattered outside of, that are miles from some of these rivers, and great looking structural elements you look at. And, that would, just hearing that from you would probably like, okay, at least I'm going to check that dock pattern out here, and, and to give me some, semblance of what to do from there. So. Well, Gord, I know you have a presentation, and even if it's only 15 or 20 minutes, I think when you start talking to people about, I know people talk about, they wanted to ask, there's questions about patterning fish. We can touch on that. And in bug hatches or any of those things. So we can get to any of that stuff and talk about it. But why don't we do your presentation first, if you don't mind? I think everybody will, because when you start talking about, you're going to blow people's mind, get people thinking with more questions. I'm like, all right, let's, you actually have some good content to talk about. So I want to hear what you got to say. So
okay, I think Victoria is on here. Oh, there we go. And what I wanted to talk about, Jim, and we'll go to the first slide there, please. There we go. If there's a trouble, Jim, and everybody that fishes muskies know this. Okay, we'll go to the next one, please, Victoria. There we go. The trouble with muskies is we never catch enough of them. We don't catch enough in a day, we don't catch enough in a week, and we don't catch enough in a year to really be able to pattern them. Not like walleyes or smallmouth or anything else. They're an extreme apex predator, and we catch too few of them to really pattern. So what we need, and if we flip to the next slide there, Victoria, please, we need a proxy. And believe it or not, there is a proxy for muskies, and that is northern pike. Now, it's not 100%, Jim, but it's pretty close. And what I'm going to talk about, a very good friend of mine, Jeff Madity, and Jeff heads up the hatchery program in Saskatchewan, biologist. And Jeff's specialty is northern pike. And he's working on fossilized DNA right now. And he's doing it with folks in Canada here and Britain and Germany and Netherlands on fossilized DNA on these giant northern pike. Like they were huge in glacial times. And we've all seen how big they are still in Europe. And as Jeff says, it's hard to believe that pike have a tool in their survival box that muskies don't also have, and that muskies don't also utilize. And so what is that tool in the pike's survival box that they use religiously, and I think to a degree, and Jeff comes over and fishes with me. He loves muskie fishing as well. And we've been talking about this for the last couple of months. Next slide, please, Victoria. And when there we go. When I was at the spring fishing show last year, I talked about, and Jim, you'll recall this, I talked about a couple of spots we have on the lake here that it's so specific. If you don't make a cast on a rock, I can show you the spot, and if you go through there less than thoroughly, if you don't make a cast to the absolute specific spot, you will not see a fish and you won't catch it. And it comes back to, Jim, what you were talking about with the Muskie Hunter app. If we have a northwest wind, and flip to the next slide, please, Victoria. So if we have a northwest wind, we can raise fish. I have never in 45 years now on Lake of the Woods, and on this one particular spot, I have never caught a fish on one side of the rocks in 45 years with the northwest wind. But when the wind is blowing, and I can raise them, and they're half-hearted raises, and they'll follow, and they'll come in. They will not swing on a figure eight. They just disappear. And it's strange. And Jeff has fished this spot with me. And so he started taking this pike stuff and relating it to him, to these places. And it is brilliant. And when you hear what I'm going to tell you in a second here, it's absolutely brilliant. And we got to stop thinking of these. We often talk about sweet spots, and we talk about spots on the spot. And I think, Jim, it makes a little more sense, instead of talking about them as sweet spots and spots on the spot, we need to start thinking about them as kill zones. And I'll tell you why with the next slide. Victoria, please, if you would switch over. There we go. So again, taking the pike that we can catch and what pike do. Next slide, please, Victoria. If you look at the kill zone, and again, this blows my mind, is every good muskie spot, every good northern pike spot, in the summertime at least, you will generally find somewhere that it's a sun exposed, somewhere close by, there's a sun exposed calm water spot. If you look on the bottom of these spots, and Jeff does this all the time for northern pike, and I'm going to propose to you that if pike do it, muskies do it as well. If you look on the bottom, you will see long white grease marks. And what it is pike defecation. They are crapping there. And muskies will do the same thing. And if you look, if folks that are watching us today, if you go out this year and start looking in the water, many times you'll think that it's a seagull. It's just like a seagull rock where you see the white seagull rock where they've been crapping all over it. If you look in the water on these spots, they are pike and muskie defecation areas. And the fish use them religiously. It's like us going in the house here, or you in your house there, Jim. You know, your washroom is separate from your dining room, and it's separate from your kitchen. You eat in a different location than you use the washroom. And believe it or not, with Northern Pike, these are extended use areas. But there's a big but. And the big but, Victoria, flip the slide, please. When she's hungry, so the pike is there, they defecate in these shallow, warm areas. And we often identify them as the best muskie spots in the lake. And we'll say, man, every time I come here, or so often when I come here, I raise the fish and they follow, but they must have seen so many baits and they just will not hit it no matter what I do. They are the defecation areas. And when you find them, Jim, when you find these white grease spots in the bottom, and you can often see them looking over the side of the boat, or if you put a camera down, but usually you'll see them. They're shallow enough that you'll see them on the bottom of the lake. And usually within 1, 2, or 3 casts away, there is a kill zone. And when the fish moves from the bathroom, if you will, or from the defecation area, she moves to the kill spot. And when she's hungry, that's where she goes. And next slide, please, Victoria. Now, I'm a hunter as well. I love deer hunting, I love moose hunting and waterfowl and whatever. And here's the interesting thing. If you're deer hunting, say you're on a beaver swamp, and the beaver swamp, the wind's blowing from the northwest, and the scrape line and the rub spots are on the east side, you would never, ever, ever hunt that spot with a northwest wind. And what Jeff will tell you, and it's really, really interesting, because now we found this muskie lounge. We found the pike lounge, the muskie lounge, where the fish are defecating and they lounge there. Jeff's saying, you know, we got to be really, really careful, be prudent, and be cautious, and maybe not even fish them. You can annoy the fish. You can blow her off her routine. Go back, please, one more time there, Victor. Yeah, you can blow her off her routine, and she can become unaggressive. She can zone out, and you can actually blow your chances. So just like deer hunting, where you would never, ever go to those spots where you know this is not the spot ever to be on a northwest wind, because I'm blowing my scent over to the northeast side, and you'll spook every deer out of the area. You'll put them on guard. They'll start feeding, or they'll start coming out at night only in the dark. We got to start thinking maybe about some of these things with muskies. But here's the interesting spot, or the interesting thing. Within 3, 4, 5 casts away, there is a kill zone. And that's what you've got. So the musky defecation area where you see the white streaks, that tells you start looking. There is a kill zone very, very close by. Next slide, please, Victoria. So in these lounging areas where they defecate, if you will, the suckers, tulipies, they go on high alert because there's alarm pheromones going off. And so suckers, tulipies, whitefish, smallmouth, walleyes, they'll bunch up and they'll pass through these areas extremely quickly. And they tighten up and they become high alert. Oh my God, I know there's a muskie nearby. I can smell my brothers that have been eaten, and that's the whole reason. That's the whole reason that the muskie and the northerns are going over here a couple 100 yards and defecating. They would never do that on the kill zone because it would spook everything that they're getting ready to eat. But here's the more fascinating thing. Small muskies and small northerns are fatally attracted to the same areas because the alarm, again, think of this, it's pheromones from suckers, from tulipies, from whitefish. So that's what the big muskie and that's what the big northerns have defecated in this area. it's attracting smaller northerns, smaller muskies. I'm talking about, 12, 13, 8-inch fish. And those same alarm pheromones are attracting small muskies and small pike. And this blew my mind because I start thinking about all the big northerns I've caught. And invariably, the ones that have had fish sticking out their mouth has been another northern pike. And the cannibalism on northerns is amazing. And I'm prepared to say, I think muskies are doing exactly the same thing. Their scents, when in these defecation areas, they're actually decoy scents to other smaller esophagus. And it's encouraging cannibalism, if you will. Muskies are so territorial. These aren't schooling fish. You talk to John Castleman, Dr. Castleman, about spawning, and a really big female muskie, she'll come back to her spawning area, and she'll protect that and drive out other muskies. And they are extremely territorial. They're not schooling fish. We may catch, we've often caught 2, 3, 4 muskies on a spot, but they're not schooling like walleyes. It's home ranges overlapping. And so these decoy scents are actually attracting smaller esophagus, and they're encouraging cannibalism. And so again, the pike, and I think the muskies as well, do not kill where they defecate, but it's very, very close by. Next slide, please, and I'm almost finished here. So it's an evolutionary arm race here. And Jeff's working, he actually did his postgraduate work with the University of Saskatchewan, the ichthyology lab. But suckers, and this is brilliant as well, suckers, when a muskie clamps down, it T-bones a big sucker. As soon as the muskie T-bones that big sucker, or a big tulipy or a big whitefish, that fish spews alarm pheromones. And it does it, believe it or not, this is amazing, but it does it to attract other muskies and northern pike. And you go, well, that's crazy. If this sucker or tulipy or whitefish has been attacked by this giant muskie and it's going to get eaten, why would it spew alarm pheromones to attract other northerns and other muskies? And of course, the reason is, as soon as the muskie sees that other bigger muskie coming in, because it's been attracted by those pheromones, what does it do? It opens its mouth to turn that bait that it's just eaten around to swallow it, and the bait can escape. The other thing it does, the muskie opens its mouth to be territorial and to fight. And again, it's a survival tactic of suckers, and it's actually an extremely successful tactic of suckers to release and to spew alarm pheromones to attract other muskies and northern pike so that it can survive. Next slide, please, Victoria. So, pike on pike predation, and I'm prepared to tell you that I think it's muskies on muskie predation as well. We don't see enough muskies to know it, and we don't open them up to find out that some of them are probably eating smaller muskies. But the important population mechanism to groom the biggest and the best fish to pass on those superior genes is to eat your smaller brothers and sisters. So pike are eating other pike. Do muskies eat other muskies in terms of predation? I'm certain they do. And I'm prepared to say for Mike Nabulsi out there at Muskie Bass Magnet Lures and Brad Rue at Muskie Innovations and Landry Smith, who's making his rover baits, I think the first soft bait manufacturer who starts making small musky, long, thin, musky size soft plastics is going to be they're going to open up a new frontier. I truly truly believe that. And I will go so far as to say, when you think about throwing pounders and baits like that, soft plastics that tend to be long, and we throw them thinking we're imitating suckers. We think we're imitating suckers and alewives and coolabys and whitefish. I think many times the areas that we're throwing them in, especially if they're in those defecation areas very close by the kill zones or in the kill zone themselves, I think the muskies are hitting them thinking they're also potentially smaller muskies. I think they're being territorial. I think they're feeding. And I think it is muskie on muskie predation. Next slide, please, Victoria. And so I want to talk about one quick thing here, one more thing. I know, and it relates to the very same thing. So where does big end? And I know we're pushing this bigger. Guys are throwing number 12s and maybe even 14 size baits now, the big spinners. This is probably the second biggest muskie we caught this year. We caught it fishing for crappies on a 1/16 ounce jig with a little tiny minnow. And how many times do we think about the number of times people catch muskies and they're never necessarily throwing gigantic baits? They tend to be throwing, and think about it, the number of muskies like this size that get caught on 1/16 ounce jig and minnows. And it's amazing. It is truly amazing. There's a video up right now. Go online, Google it. And it's a guy, a British angler, quick strike rigging small northern pike. So he's quick strike rigging 8-10 inch northern pike. And there are 3 and 4 pound perch, European perch, trying to eat the pike. And there are more yellow perch eating muskies and pike when they're 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10 inches than there are muskies eating those perch when they get bigger. It is an evolutionary arm race. Next slide, please, and I truly am almost finished. So in the winter, and this is really cool, I'm working with Dr. John Castleman, and I'm talking to John, and one of our specialties is that I like doing is catching the big northerns. Our biggest so far through the ice is 54 inches, 32 pounds. And then Bob came up to film one of his real fishing television shows, and we got another 50 incher that was 30 right on, 30 pounds. And this whole bigger is better theory. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think you can take it too far. So I'm talking to John Castleman, Dr. Castleman, probably the most renowned socket research in the world. And John kept a big northern pike in the research lab. Now, what I'm going to tell you is in the winter time. So we kept them in the winter, had them in for a week, or for weeks, and he had them swimming, big northern swimming for a week in the research lab, simulating winter conditions. Now, I know it's winter, so the water's cold. They had unlimited minnows forage to feed on. How many minnows did a big northern pike eat in 1 week? And if you think about that for a second, think about it. How many did a big northern pike with unlimited food? It's like you going into the buffet in Las Vegas and seeing all that food there. How many minnows did that big northern pike eat in 1 week? And the answer is a single one. That's all it ate. And sometimes, I know it was wintertime, but sometimes the big fish theory, you can take it too far. And we need to think about, again, I'll come back to that buffet table. You know, you can go to some of the restaurants where they say, if you eat the 35-ounce steak, it's yours for free. But most of us don't ever try to do it. And when we go to the buffet table, and I hate putting human qualities to fish, but when we go to the buffet table, we take a normal size plate, and we don't immediately go to the meat and fill our tray up gigantically. We take some scallops, we take some shrimp. You know what? That's exactly what Castleman's work is showing in the research lab. It's what Mattity's seeing on his big northern pike work. And I think to a degree, it translates to muskies as well. Last slide, I believe, Victoria. Oh, it is the last slide. And Jimmy, you talked about how we're kind of muskie anglers are, but all I can say is we are pilgrims. So travel safe, guys, and have a great year coming up, and use this to your advantage. But if you find those white streaks on the bottom, I guarantee within 2 cast lengths, there is a spot that is a kill zone.
So Gord, that's, I mean, yeah, you totally hit my wheels turning on, and I'm sure a lot of other people here, but one question up front, it's on here is like, how deep are these grease spots? Are they in like, if it's obviously going to be a shallower, calm area to see them. Are you seeing them in 3 foot of water, 5 foot of water? I mean, sometimes in certain places, how deep typically do you see them?
As a general rule, Jim, they tend to be in that 3, 4, 6 foot. Now, here's what Mattity is even speculating, though, and this again will blow your mind, because when they defecate over in these areas, and so the tulipies bunch up. I actually took a picture of a school that was right on beside a school of tulipies. And again, I'm going, oh my God, they are so tight. And you could see a couple of arcs right underneath them. But what Jeff is saying is they move through it really quickly. And then all of a sudden the scent disperses because of the way the wind's blowing. And they relax and they spread out and they calm down. Mm-hmm. But he's even saying, Jim, that they will pull off that kill zone, go out to deeper water. He calls it out and dump and come back in. And it might actually push the bait right into the kill zone from deeper water. Just the fact that the scent is dispersing. But as a general rule, they're very, very shallow. They're in the lounging areas. They're in the areas where the water warms up. And it's where the muskies and the northerns, from thermoregulation, they can relax there. This is the area I can recuperate in. I have fed in my kill zone. I'm full, and now I can defecate and I can sit here in the lounge and I can relax. I get hungry again. I go back over to my kill zone, and now I'm ready.
Interesting. That's really, really interesting. There's, Matt here wanted to talk more about pike. He was in this kind of apex relationship. He's got a question about, if they're kind of attracted, to the same spots. Will one spot be dominated more by pike versus one spot by muskies? Have you seen that, or when you've been out?
Well, the reason we even got into it, Jim, is again based on those areas I showed last year at the spring fishing show. I'm lucky in that I've been on Lake of the Woods since 1976. So what's that, 45 years. I have fished that spot, one of the spots I showed at the seminar. I have fished it for 45 years. I have never, ever, and it's not 20 feet wide. I have never, ever in 45 years on the upwind side, I have never caught a single muskie. I have raised giants. I have raised them. I've had them slowly come in on figure eights. And yet when I go to the other side where the wind's blowing differently, and there's one rock, unless you put that rock, and that's where every single fish, it blows my mind. Because if you miss it, Jimmy, by 3 casts, you don't get a bite. And I have never, ever in 45 years on the side where they hit, I have never seen a follow. They hit it on the cast. And I mean, as I say, it raises more questions than it answers, but it just tells you they are faithful. And Jeff will tell you they are faithful on the really, really good lounging areas and the really, really good defecation areas where you see the white grease marks. He says they are as faithful as they are to their spawning grounds.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I think it's kind of it kind of takes me to that whole deer hunting, muskie fishing relationship and the similarities between those, that, how when you're in the woods looking for certain things, it just, it'll have me looking from different things. But, the one guy's question about the pike, I would say that when I'm muskie fishing, I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence when I'm catching a bunch of little pike on a spot, that I'm going to catch a muskie that are, let's say, 12 to 18 inch or 12 to 20 inch pike. But I can say when I fish Eastern Ontario, where in a lot of the lakes where I fish there, where I think some of the populations may be lower than Lake of the Woods, the one thing I've noticed is that even if I don't catch a muskie at the time, if I catch a pike that's 36 to 40 inches, something like that, or 32 to 40 in that size, then to me, I'm like, this is going to be a muskie spot. I mean, I would say that I treat it the same way, where I might fish, let's say 7 or 8 islands that all have a patch of weeds on them, and I don't see any muskies on any of them. But on the spot 7, I catch a 40-inch pike, and it maybe it's in the afternoon or whatever. I will make it a point to return to that spot under more prime conditions, and I can't tell you how many times that boom, I catch a muskie on that spot. And then I'll go fish some of those other islands and still not catch one, but that will be one. So I use, I guess, contacts, that pike muskie relationship. I definitely use contact with big pike as a clue that also more than likely is a large predator, attracts large predators and maybe a muskie spot. And it helps guide me in those areas. I mean, heck, fishing a lake like Nipissing, you don't get all kinds of muskie encounters, but I will get pike encounters at times that then clue me in and then have resulted in me catching, 50-inch class fish off spots that the only clue I had was not a follow, it was a pike.
What's interesting too, Jim, there used to be in Ontario here the Molson Big Fish Contest, and they used to print a million applications in Ontario. Folks will remember it, and they were available through the beer store. And anyway, the last 3, it was either 3 or 4 years that it ran. I got lucky enough that I released the biggest muskie in Ontario and won the contest. It was 3 or 4 years in a row. I also won the Northern Pike release in the catch and release division in those same years. I never once went fishing for Northern Pike. I caught every single one of those fish as a bonus, as an accident. There are a couple of guys, I think they might be looking in there, Lyndon Dewsome, Carter Dewsome, and Luke. And they live just north of Kenora here. Carter and Luke, believe it or not, Jim, they're 16 and I think 16, 17, and 19 years old. And they said they could have been you talking about Lake Nipissing and using big Northern Pike to find their best muskie spots. They said exactly what you said.
That's good. See, they're on it, and I think that's and it's a clue. And and I certainly love fishing new waters. And one of my favorite things for years has always been exploring different areas, start Ontario, and the one to make. I hate to make generalizations, but we can't but like you said, we have so few muskie encounters relatively the same. But my approach to fishing some of those Eastern Ontario waters is slightly different than some of the ones in Northwest Ontario where the populations, I believe, are higher. And in those lower density populations, I tend to, I'm fishing with a purpose. I'm trying to locate an active fish that might actually follow or bite, and so I'm just, I kind of, the bass guys call it power fishing, right? Where you're fishing an inline spinner or a topwater, or you're moving quickly through spots. And I do that. And I just keep fishing spot after spot after spot, trying to get encounters and thinking that I tell myself, oh, it's not my skill set. It's just that I haven't encountered a muskie that's active yet. And then keep fishing through spots to either, get a follow or catch one or catch a big pike. And then, and then I refish those areas, multiple times. And then, you ultimately get confirmation and keep moving through theirs. And then once you start learning the lake and you go from never fishing it before to all of a sudden having 10 spots or 20 spots or 30, now you can fish it with a little more confidence that okay, I've seen muskies in all these 30 spots. I know they use them, and now I can play around with the weather conditions and go back and fish different lures or slow down and take that approach. You know, so.
Jimmy, I see Victoria would like to do a quick commercial, and then
Sure.
will jump into questions.
Okay.
Outdoor Canada. Don't miss a single issue of Canada's only national hunting and fishing magazine. Subscribe to Outdoor Canada today.
Got to keep the sponsors happy.
Yeah, no, that's all good. You know. All right. So let's see what other questions. There was a question here about, you know, will muskies feed and muskie feed on trout when available? You know, like such in the great, or they spend too much time in open, you know, or they spend as much time in open water. And, you know, and I have fished some musky trout lakes. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I mean, I certainly have, I know they're probably feeding on them, you know, in some of those lakes I've fished that are in Ontario, the smaller ones that have been like, they have a lot of pike, they have muskies and you know, and they're clear. And I definitely assume they're fishing, feeding on them as well as, you know, potentially tula bead or anything else. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because you fish those more than I do.
It's a great question, Attila. I see Attila Pap ask that one, and it is a great question. I've got some lakes here, Jim. You know Dryberry, and it's the classic musky lake trout lake. Huge body of water, and it's great for both species. I think, and it's a great question for this reason. They have to feed on lake trout. More or less, I think they have to feed on also what lake trout are feeding on, which are suckers and tullibees, etc. They don't want to. And what I always talk about is it preferred? Is it the most abundant, or what they have to feed on? And so if they have to go out and feed on it, on trout, they absolutely will. They don't want to. They don't want to be in 48-degree water. They're an ambush predator, so they're certainly not well equipped to go out into pelagic open water and run down lake trout or tullibees or anything. But if they can hide somewhere on a high percentage structure, absolutely. But you know what? It brings us back to that what I was talking about earlier. What I think they will do is feed in as much as they can. If they can, they will eat smaller muskies and they will eat smaller northern pike. If they can get it down their throat, they will eat it. And rather than go out and do something that they're very ill-equipped to do. But if they have to, absolutely, they will go out and do it. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think they've got to feed on them, you know, like anything else. I mean, I think that, you know, it's lots of lakes I fish throughout the States. You know, I encounter a lot of suspended muskies, you know, and because my waters are small, relatively smaller in size, it's easier for me to cast for suspended muskies, you know, because I can break down the open water area in a more smaller, more fishable content, you know, to cast them. And you know, and you know, when I've got some lakes in the States that have lake trout, they've got other suspended forage. So if they're feeding on suspended forage of any kind, they would feed on lake trout as well. You know, I could certainly see that, you know. Now here's a good question I see from Mark Brick, and it's, you know, it's the classic question: how do giant muskies behave differently from average size muskies? You know, like, or do they behave differently? You know, and it's so hard to get those, to pick those generalities. I can tell you that, I guess, Gordon, you know, and I'll start with this and then you can jump in. You know, to me, it's like there are times when big muskies act like every other muskie, you know, and I see that. But on the flip side, you know, some of the, you know, there are also other times when the larger fish are doing something different than what smaller muskies are doing. You know, and I've seen it in a lot of the waters I fish in the States where maybe I'm catching muskies fishing weedy points. And a lot of the fish I catch are 32 to, let's say, 42 inches. And I may catch 2 or 3 of them and have encounters. And then I inevitably go check out some rock spots or go cast some open water. And it might be that going then fishing deeper reefs, all of a sudden I'm encountering fish that are 45 inches or bigger, or maybe even, seeing larger ones doing on a different structural element. So there are times when the big fish will do something different than the small ones. So there's this adage that a lot of the fishermen, anglers say, I hear this, it's like, don't leave fish to find fish, meaning if you're catching them, don't leave that and go do something different. And I am a big proponent of, I always do. If I'm trying to catch a big muskie somewhere and I'm fishing certain spots, if I'm not seeing big ones, I'm like, let me go try something else, because the fish are biting now. There's some window open, there's something conducive. So now I'm going to try different things to see if I can't find a big one, from there. Having said all that, I also think that some of these older fish being, and, I hate to put the human association, but, when some of these fish become 20, 25 years, I got to believe they are more aware of their environment. They've responded to actions more. They've been through, different things. And so they're more aware of their surroundings. I have to believe they're not quote unquote smarter, but their response mechanism has become more honed. And so, because of that, I would say you could think, and maybe this is the wrong word, that they become more leery or they're more aware. So therefore they're harder to catch because they're just, their lateral line system is more advanced. I'm not sure what, but it is a difference. So Gord, have at it, and what your thoughts are.
Well, I agree with you 100%, Jim. The unfortunate thing is there are far fewer of them.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. If we all knew how few big muskies are out there, even in Lake of the Woods, 1 million acres of water, 65,000 miles of shoreline. I was the district manager of natural resources here. Jim, I can't tell you a single time we caught a muskie in one of our index nets for walleye. That's how rare these fish are. There are not a lot out there. The other thing I will say, and you alluded to this earlier, we all love traveling to new waters, but muskies are a fish, if you truly, truly want to really, really concentrate on big fish, the more you know your body of water, the more chance you're going to catch that giant, really giant of a lifetime, because they occupy the best spots. The biggest fish are on the absolute best spots. But I will caution that by saying the absolute best spots aren't the most obvious. They are isolated. They are sometimes the last place you would look. But then when you find them, they are where the big fish are. So the big fish occupy the absolute best spots. And I think if you really, really are interested, pick a lake. It could be Green Bay, it could be Eagle Lake or Lac Seul or Lake of the Woods or Rainy, Nipissing, Ottawa River, but pick a water body. You cannot know it too well. And Jimmy, you know this, it is all about location. You can have the best boat, the best rods, reels, motors, electronics in the world. If there are no fish where you're fishing, you're not going to catch anything.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think that, and there's questions about, electronics and, everyone is all gets, I've had a lot of questions on, throughout this whole winter months from people about, side imaging and Panoptics and all the live view and, what's the difference? Is it, is it revolutionizing musky fishing and how are you using it? And in the end, I certainly believe all of that can help you. And, and I have all the great, just like you, all the gadgets on my boat and I look at it. And, I think the one thing that I tell people is that, the more you can learn about a body of water, the better. And if like you said, if you have a favorite Canadian body of water or US body of water you're fishing, I think that you need to learn more about the spots. And it's, the grass is not always greener chasing a hot bite somewhere else from there. If you're if you're fishing a section of Lake of the Woods and you go up once a week, or twice a week, throughout the season to fish it, really learn that area. I can't tell you how many times for me personally, because I only spend, a week or two a year on Lake of the Woods if I'm lucky. And it will be, I've gone from traveling large to trying to be able to be in a situation where, let's say in an evening when all of a sudden that bite kicks in, where I'm fishing, let's say it's a small island and I catch one where I can look around me or look at it and go, hey, look, I now have 5 other spots that are similar in visual sight of me that I can run and fish those 5 spots in the next hour, and I'll catch a fish off every one of them because I'm not running. I'm fishing spots with confidence that are similar because I know I fished them during the day and I know it's the same type of rock structural element or a shelf that exists in those. And so now, rather than just running because I've got somebody else's map, I've learned 5 similar spots that are in an area, and I can fish them in that bite window. And the next thing I know, I've caught 5 that evening rather than 1.
It's interesting, Joe. I mentioned I've been here since '76, so 45 years on the lake, and folks don't like to hear this. I'm up at the north end, which is entirely, we manage Lake of the Woods as 5 separate water bodies. And I know, Jimmy, you spend a lot of time with your university down in the south end. And that is, I'll be honest with you, that is the better area, better in terms of more fish, far more. It's shallower, has some weed growth. Where I fish, deep water, hard rock, no weeds. And it's tougher. I won't catch 3 undersized, we won't catch 3 muskies under 45 inches all year long. We won't. Some of that is because I've got 45 years on the water, and we thought before, geez, there's no reproduction. And then we realized, you know what, we've probably weeded out, and we no longer go to the smaller fish spots, and we're only hitting prime spot. But Jimmy, I can go 4 days and not see a fish. We might average 1 a day, but we'll go 4 and say, why are we doing this? And you check the Muskie Hunter app, and today's a hot day, and you go catch 4, and you say, oh, now I remember why I'm doing it.
Right.
But you and I have tough days, and I always say to folks, especially on the electronic side, I can take every piece of electronics out of Jim Sarrick's boat, and he will catch far more muskies than you with the best electronics in the world. Ask yourself why. And it's all about location. It's all about having done it, Jimmy, for as many years as you've done it. And you learn from it. And that's the fun part of muskie fishing. It's not having someone else's waypoints. And it's not having a piece of electronics that you can simply run out and think, oh, it's going to show me where there's a muskie. That's not how it works.
That's so true. That's true. So, Gordon, you're going to have to, I don't think you have a photo of the grease areas of the defecate. If you did, people are like, what does it look like? Do you have a photo? So you're going to have to get a photo or publish it somewhere so that people can see it. I think that,
if folks can think of a seagull rock, the seagull rock, it's just barely out of the water, and there's half a dozen pelicans and seagulls sitting on it, and
love how that smell, by the way, love that smell. Yeah.
Imagine that on the bottom, and that's what you're looking for on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Kevin from Kawarthas.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your best? I hang up the rods over. Where to start to see fish. On the Kawartha lakes. I will tell you that I fished the Kawartha several times. And they remind me a lot of the Wisconsin waters that I fish. They're just larger in size, but the features are the same. In summer there's like anywhere else. I think that on the Kawarthas you're going to have an early morning and an evening bite that's going to happen all the time. Those waters are generally a little bit clearer. And there's 2 summer patterns that I think I've found quite a bit, pretty consistent on the Kawartha lakes. One, some of the real deeper weeds where you've got, cabbage or deeper weeds growing in like that 13 to 15 foot of water, 17 feet of water. So you got to get out off that edge and fish the deeper soft plastics and work that deeper edge. And I've caught fish doing that in summer, in August. And the other thing is some of the Kawartha lakes are really shallow, where they almost look like, I don't want to say weed choke, but they look like massive weed flats. And you'll be driving in an area and you'll be cutting across the area at shallow weeds, and you're looking at your sonar and it's 8 foot, 8 foot, 8 foot, and it's weeds. And all of a sudden it goes 8 foot, drops down to 12, or it drops down to 11. And then it'll come back up to like 8. And so there'll be this depression or hole that goes from 8 foot to 12 foot. And you won't have the weeds in these some of these shallower lakes where you have these little subtle holes that drop down like 3 foot. And you pop your boat in, set your boat down in this hole, and let's say 12 foot of water, and cast the surrounding weeds, or cast through this deeper hole. And in the summertime, it's that relatively deeper water. It's only a few feet deeper that ends up holding fish on the Kawarthas.
Jimmy, I see a question here about, can you explain what an inside break is? And that's another great question, because I love fishing inside breaks. And what an inside break, I just quickly, so we all know about the points, and we all love fishing points. And so this is, imagine that's an underwater contour line. Maybe that's 12, 14 feet deep. So I've drawn the 12-foot contour, and there's an underwater point. And the inside turn is really, it's the point coming the other direction. And the funny thing is, we can all recognize that. And if I said, there's my favorite, there's my favorite muskie spot, everybody would run. Or there's Jim Sarrick's favorite spot, and they'd all run here and start casting the point. Remember, that's an underwater point, underwater contour. But here's the inside turn, and it's every bit as good. Think of it as a point in the other direction. And the really cool thing about them, a really, really cool thing about them, is muskies use them as ambush spots. And if you imagine now, there's a whole bunch of other contours there, and it is a better ambush spot in many, many cases than the actual point itself. And if you only run to the point and fish it, you might have missed the two best spots there, the two inside turns that muskies are using as ambush spots. What else? And Jimmy, you'll use them. I don't have the weeds that you have, but there's inside turns on weed beds every bit as much, and sometimes they're as good or better as well.
Oh yeah, particularly, and in fact, later in the fall, those areas become the most important. So it's something about those inside turn areas where the weeds, you may be a lake that has a lot of weed growth in them, like the Kawarthas, and the weeds that are on that point in late October and into November may die, but the weeds that are on the inside turns are still lush and green, and they hold bait. And so, literally, I will target fishing and holding my boat in those inside turns on those spots much more. And then I'll move quickly around the point, and then I'll slow down on the next inside turn. And that's how important they are. For certain things. So is it 11? I think it might, we're getting close, isn't it? I think, but do we have more questions? Oh, Andy's back. Look out. I don't know about that. So, you're muted, Andy. Yeah. I see his microphone is muted from what I see.
Yes, I see him talking.
Now he's gone.
Jimmy, there's one other, the fellow that asked about lake trout, and on those lake trout lakes, and do muskies feed on trout. One other thing to think about is how trout are shallow until up here, probably first, second week of July. And so they're well within muskies. The trout are cruising in 18, 20 feet of water in the end of June, early July. So guaranteed muskies are feeding on them. And in the fall, when they spawn, they're coming shallow the end of August, early September. And from September, October, November, they're well within the range of muskies to feed on. So when you think about it, July and August are the only 2 months that muskies can't actively feed on lake trout really, really well.
Yeah, no, that's it. That is true. So can't think of. It's hard for me to think about them being that shallow. There he is. Hey, Andy's back.
I'm back, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there. We got a little technical difficulty at my end. So you know what? I've been listening to all your talking today. It's actually amazing, and we really appreciate everything. But you guys started off with something really important for me because, we've got a lot of new anglers that are coming to the sport, and the thing is with all those new anglers coming to the sport, and how do you say, how many boats are on these lakes, and a lot of these guys don't have that. I don't want to call it etiquette, but just that whole, we have something about, especially the Muskie Canada guys. They put so much work in preserving and how do we work with these fish. And I think that we shouldn't be taking a place where these are all new guys. We want these guys to be a part of our future because hopefully we're going to get some new blood also helping with some of these projects and helping funding these things. So what would be your advice to people for anglers to tell other anglers, especially in the muskie world? If you knew a guy was coming into fishing just in general, even if he wasn't targeting muskie, but the thing is incidentals happen all the time, and end season, out of season, what would be some of the things that you feel comfortable you should be telling these guys how to dress? Because everybody's watching this right now, especially the Muskie Canada guys are avid anglers and totally everybody goes to an angler. When I have a question about a specific species of fish, I'm going to go to an expert of that species. So the thing is if I'm going to be taking my kids fishing for the first time and they accidentally hook at the muskie, if you want that kid, you want that fish being played for an hour before they weighed in, stuff like that. That advice, good advice that you can give these guys. We got 10 minutes before we wrap this up. I thought this would be a great way to wrap it up, guys.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say, Andy, I tell people, I go, even if you're not a muskie angler just getting into it, besides, make sure you've got the right release equipment. So I would say it's really important if you're, and for example, if you're a walleye or a bass angler and you want to get into muskie fishing or even if you're new to muskie fishing and you are going to be on a lake that's got muskies because of the incidental catches, get yourself make sure you've got the right tools, long nose pliers, a pair of hook cutters, and it's not, you may, if you're going to muskie fish, obviously have a big net is certainly helpful, I think, because you can actually leave the fish in the water. But at a minimum, having a pair of long nose pliers that's 10 inches long and hook cutters having the right tools to handle them, and maybe even a glove is going to help you. It's going to help the fish, right? Because if you're, we're all worried about, we want to catch them. But because these fish are fragile and they are but they are a renewable resource and they might live to be 20, 25 years. If you handle them properly, they will. If not, they're not going to live, at all. So, and having the right equipment, just those tools alone are going to save your, keep you safe, right? Because nobody wants a big hook in their hand. And it is a dangerous situation. Not to scare anybody, but, having a 5/0 treble hook on the back of some, hooked to a muskie on one end in your net and then dangling on the net in the other. You don't want to just reach your hand in. Having a pair of 10-inch pliers where you can reach in and unhook up or cut that hook is it's a potential hand injury you want to avoid. It's a way to more safely handle a muskie from there. And so I would definitely say have the right tools, have a game plan for what you want to do before you catch one and take that. And I'll let Gord kind of go from there. But you got to have the right equipment too.
Yeah, boy, I can't add much to that, Jim. The bolt cutters, what I always say to folks, your hook costs you $1 at the most. So if you invest in a really, really good pair, I'm talking really good pair of bolt cutters, you go snip, 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 and that's the end of your treble hook. It's no longer in the fish and it can't get caught to you. It get caught on you. And you're going to replace it likely anyways. After it's caught a fish, you want to replace it, sharpen it. So snipping it off, putting a brand new high premium Gamakatsu or whatever on. The other thing to remember, Andy, these fish are often 30, 32, 34 years old. these are your grandmother. The big fish we're catching, there's never a male by and large. Males top out at about 40 inches. So the fish we're really chasing are females. The only reason they're big is so they can grow more eggs. And the biggest fish are grandmothers. And so you wouldn't tie your grandmother to the back of the car and walk down the road.
Yeah.
So, and when you catch a fish, take a breath. When you need another breath, that fish needs to be in the water.
Yeah, that's
true. It's
excellent
true.
advice. Yeah.
Okay, so just a couple of things real quick, because I just want to get to maybe not so avid guys that are maybe listening in right now, maybe getting to muskie. And for all the guys that are watching us, keep in mind that these episodes will be uploaded, and all this information can be listened to over and over again. Okay, so if I'm a new guy getting into muskie, I don't have a lot of money. What should I be looking for? Like a minimal type of rod requirement, type of line and reel.
Yeah,
Either
I mean,
way you go.
yeah, I mean, I would say that, I mean, certainly I'm a Shimano guy, so but I would say you can get into, an entry level. You don't have to go crazy, right? You can go and get yourself, I would say go to like an 8 or an 8.5 foot, heavy action rod, like a Sojourn or a Compi rod with any kind of, get a Shimano Tranx reel on there, spool it up with, 80 to 100 pound Power Pro, and you're good to go for the most part. And live with one rod like that, and then go fish with a guide or two. Go fish with buddies who have experience. Try to get in the boat with someone who knows. Go fish with a Muskies Canada member, and you'll see what kind of equipment, and see what lures you like to fish, and you do it. But ultimately, you're going to get hooked in this muskie game, and then just like bass fishing, you're going to say, I need this rod for topwater, and I need this rod for fishing soft plastics, and this rod for a bucktail, and this rod for a jerkbait. So you're going to get there, and I'm sorry if you take on this sport. This is how it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Be careful for what you wish for from there. It's a wonderful thing. But you can basically start with that, and in the worst case, if you don't want to go buy something and you're a bass fisherman, take your heaviest bass flip and stick, put some 80-pound braid on the reel you've got, and go fish some of the more traditional or smaller, number 8 blade inline spinners, and do that with it. And a lot of those rods can handle that. And then you'll see quickly what you need to change from there.
Corey, anything you want to add to that, or?
No, Jim's right on. The key, again, though, and Jim mentioned it, I would borrow a rod. Or talk to someone who's a good muskie angler, get their advice. And if you can get a chance to go out and fish with them, but borrow, say, what should I, and then feel it. The other thing I always say too is, if you go to the store, most folks don't really know when they pick a rod up. Now that they pick it up, what am I looking for? And so I always say, take a long stretch. So maybe take 14, 16 feet of line, and actually string it through the rod, and then hold it on, and then feel what it feels like. And more importantly, if you're fishing with someone and they say, here's what I'm using for a topwater, here's what a good bucktail action feels like, get the feel for it. And then say, oh, wow, now I know what you're talking about. And then when you go to the store to buy it, you've got a really good sense, because you've felt it. You get that a little bit of muscle memory anyway.
Yeah. So just real quick, will that rod allow you to cast and troll that you're talking about, like that specific size rod? So the rod that Jim said basically will allow you to do both cast and troll?
Yes. Yeah, you could do both with it. You bet. Yeah, you can get away with both. Yeah. I mean, ideally it's not using your bait caster. If you're going to troll with that one rod, you probably need to hold it in your hand, because you're a casting reel, from there. And you can do both, from that scenario. But like I said, if you're truly going on a trolling trip, and then you're and you want to put your rod, it's going to be in a rod holder, and you're going to do that, you would want to have a rod that's maybe got a line counter or a bait clicker or something. You can hear it. It's slightly different. But having said that, yes, you could. Again, in Canada, it's one rod a person, so you could use that same rod to troll, to cast. You hold it in your hand when you're trolling, and you're good to go.
Well, I like the idea of getting out with a guide, at least beforehand, if that's what you're going to get into. And it's really not that. I went out with Jim Fleming this summer with Bob Izumi not long ago. We had the best time ever. Now, it's a little bit different because he trolls, right? So it was a lot of trolling, and it was down in Lake St. Clair. It was absolutely incredible. We had such a good time. Like, we weren't catching fish, we were laughing, right? And it was a lot of fun. But things like that are good to see. But like, I just want to make sure it's the new guys right now that not that they concern me. I just want to make sure they're coming into the sport with the ethics that we work so hard in when it comes to conservation, when it comes to preserving. Like, let's face it, there's not a lot of people that are eating fish anymore. A lot of them are just sports fishing. But with that said, there's always a good shore lunch maybe with a walleye on the sideline. So there's nothing wrong with that. But things do come into play. So I think it's important. Like, I know you with the tournaments this summer, like, we've seen people backing up their boats into the water, and a lot of them really have missions. Take 5 minutes out and introduce a new angler to the sport the right way, and maybe help him back up. Let him know that maybe he's backing his trailer too far in to load his boat. Like, little things like that really go a long way. And it really becomes welcoming. You'd be surprised how they come into the sport with a different attitude and more respectful, like what we've all been working hard to do. So, guys, I have to say thank you. Like, I can't put, it's not the hugs and kisses like every year. We didn't have our chance to have our dinner. My biggest thing this year is, when it comes to the muskie I am concerned for Muskie Canada, and the only reason why I say that is because it's such an incredible organization. And, I know they make, when you go to if you come to a fishing show and there's all those things around the room and you get a chance to buy, and that money all goes back to help them do good things for the sport. And the thing is, and even with the not being able to do the Muskie's Odyssey this year, so they're really not going to have all the funding they've had in previous years. And that money all goes back to all kinds of projects and stuff that really benefit and have given you guys the fishing, given us all the fishing that we're getting nowadays, and through messaging like guys like yourself. So I don't know, is there any message maybe you can give guys and letting them know that what they should be out there supporting and maybe doing things that don't require money from a membership standpoint?
I will say one thing, Andy. And I worked for 31 years for M&R. And on some of the best muskie waters in the world. Muskies Canada and Muskies Inc., there is no other organization like them. There truly isn't. And Jim, I know, will agree with me. Muskie anglers, by and large, are pretty secretive guys and gals, but it's amazing when you join. You talked about what rods should I buy and what reels. If you belong to Muskies Canada, you wouldn't even ask that. You'd just go to the members, and they'd take you out for the day, and you'd go fishing, or they'd loan you a rod. It is, and I say this in total honesty. It is probably the greatest fishing organization from a conservation and from a learning perspective that I have ever seen. And so if you're not a member of Muskies Canada, or if you're not a member of Muskies Inc. in the US, and you're a muskie angler, you're making a huge mistake.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Gord. I think that it is so important to, even if you can't go to meetings, or you can't, now they're having a lot of Zoom things. Even if you can't do any of that, I think it's important to realize that the efforts of these organizations are the ones that kind of help support a lot of the Ministry of Natural Resources, or the DNR. They help support, like in the States, it's muskie research, and it's stocking of areas, or it's habitat protection. It's whatever they need to help do that. And it's kind of like, if that goes away, if Muskies Canada or Muskies Inc. went away, the muskie fishing as we know it today, I certainly believe, would ultimately go away, because you wouldn't have the research going into it. You wouldn't have the support for that. And, it is hand in hand. So I think that anything we can do to kind of support these organizations who are kind of behind the scenes working on all of our behalf to make muskie fishing better across all of North America is a huge thing.
Well, guys, I can't begin to thank you guys for coming here and the messaging you guys that last message were very powerful coming from guys like yourself. So again, guys, if you're a Muskie Canada guy, keep up the good work. Thank you very much for all you've done, Peter. You got a great organization. And make sure, keep in mind the Muskie Odyssey is going to be coming up in just a few weeks. We're going to be back this afternoon at 11:30 with Jeremy Smith and Josh Borowski, which is going to be kind of cool. Josh is new to our group, and we're hoping we're going to keep him on for next year as well too, and bring him live to the fishing show. So, anyways, guys, just want to say thank you once again. I really appreciate it. So,
yeah, I think that's. Oh no, Andy, thank you so much for doing this, and those everyone should stay on or come back for Josh and for Jeremy on that. I mean, Josh he also, he fishes a lot of pressured waters and he also is, for those of you who are into the whole electronics and want to know about side imaging and panoptics, I think he is one of the guys who can totally get you into that, dial into that, and answer a bunch of questions there. So I think he'll be really fun to listen to.
Thanks, buddy. All right, guys, thank you very much, and we'll see you soon. And we're going to probably have you on a show one night, one episode, personally, one at a time. And we'll be back next year with the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, hopefully live at the International Center.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks.
There are people who know that there's more to getting there than just getting there, who know that going fast isn't fast enough, and who know living isn't the same as feeling alive. They're people who aren't afraid to stand out, make noise, make waves, and never look back. This one's for them. The Mercury 115 horsepower and 150 horsepower Pro XS outboards. Built to win tournaments. Designed to win your heart. Mercury, go boldly.
Hey everybody, Bobby Belmonte here from Peterborough Pro Tackle. We're super excited to be part of our first Spring Fishing and Boat Show here. We're also super excited to let you know that we're going to be expanding our store, knocking down the walls, and bringing you guys one of the biggest and best muskie sections in Southern Ontario. One of our in-store specials this weekend is 20% off all Daiwa products in store. For you muskie guys, there's a Daiwa Tatula 300 size reel that would be an awesome choice to pair up in your next muskie combo. What's unique about this product is that it's the only 300 size reel equipped with the T-Wing system, which is going to result in fewer backlashes and improved casting. A great pairing with this reel would be the Daiwa Pro Rex muskie rods, which are also included in our 20% off sale. We also carry a large selection of Shimano muskie rods here at the store, one of them being the Shimano Compre muskie rods. I'm really excited that they went back to their green design. I think it looks awesome. Great choice when you're looking for a new muskie rod. With the expansion of our muskie section means a lot of new muskie baits. So let's have a look at a few new ones that we have here in the store that are going to be awesome to put into your arsenal for this upcoming muskie season. Next up are some glide baits by Chaos Tackle. This one here is the Shum Shum Quickie, and this one is the Kodiak Round Nose. They have awesome action in the water when you twitch them, as well as they come in a number of cool colors. The other cool thing about these baits is that they run surprisingly shallow, unlike a lot of other glide baits. Check out our website at ptboprotackle.ca to take advantage of all our show specials, as well as to keep up to date with all the new products that we get here in the store. Also, check out Muskie Maniacs at muskiemaniacs.ca. They're having a 25% sale this weekend. Thanks guys, and enjoy the show.